What up, Hyperchange? Welcome to another episode. Today, we're going to be talking about Arcimoto and covering some really exciting news they announced today, a partnership with Sandy Munro, one of my favorite EV auto industry legends. And I actually have a funny story, which is I introduced Mark and Sandy, so I'm personally so happy to see this news be announced. Welcome to the show, Mark.
Gally, thanks for having me on the program. What up, Hyperchange? Thank you, by the way, for making that connection. Sandy's awesome, and I think he and his team are going to be a tremendous asset for the Arcimoto program.
And so Sandy Munro, world-leading expert at tearing down vehicles, basically telling car companies how to improve their manufacturing process. Really pertinent for Arcimoto right now as you guys reach that inflection of going from, pilot vehicles producing, you probably produce about 100 to date. Arcimoto is really seeing that inflection curve of making this a mass market product. So I see this as a really perfectly timed strategic partnership of no one better to help you bring the Arcimoto into mass production than Sandy Munro. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about what you guys are going to be working on and the kind of value he adds.
Yeah, well, I didn't realize, I know him from watching the Model 3 and Model Y teardowns and the having been on your program and some of the other Tesla YouTube channels. I didn't realize until we actually started talking just how many automotive programs he has helped out in terms and the sort of the end result that they've gotten to. And when we had a chance to sit down and really talk about design process and where they think this can go, it ended up, I think it's going to be a great match. Now, obviously, we're just at the very beginning of the process of working with them. They got their Arcimoto vehicle yesterday, and so they've had a chance to rip it around the parking lot a little bit. What we are looking at is really how do we take go from a small production scale that we've done. We've mapped out the next step, kind of medium scale on the production ramp, and that's what we're going after federal funding to help out with that first stage of. And then what does this look like in the long term to go to real mass production? And that's where the Arcimoto team has brilliant engineering talent, but we have mostly come from not the automotive world. I came from computer software design. Our COO cut his teeth on heavy vehicles and airport jetways and kind of a whole host of heavy manufacturing. And that's true really across the team. We come from a lot of different areas, but we don't have the depth of Detroit talent on the team that is typical of an automotive company. So having Sandy and his team come on board at this stage, we think makes a ton of sense to help us, one, just look at really vet our manufacturing process. Two, look at our bill of materials and say, not just where we are today, but where should we be. Three, what are the opportunities for weight reduction optimizations as they look at the program through their eyes, and weight reduction helps in a lot of ways. It makes the vehicle more efficient, it makes it cost less. Ultimately, we think it'll make it more fun to drive. So as we look down the road, we see a lot of ways that they can be really synergistic with where we're trying to go.
So let's start off with the fun part. This is a fun car, no question about it. It's definitely not your grandpa's three-wheeler, unless I'm your grandpa. And I think that Munro is going to be very excited to be part of this new adventure, this new way of traveling. We can hardly wait to get started. We're excited to work with Arcimoto, and I'm looking forward to helping do everything I can to make this as a profitable vehicle as we can get out in the marketplace. Anyways, have a great day, and go and buy one of these.
And why I feel like this is awesome for Sandy too is how many vehicle startups are so scrappy, doing everything vertically integrated. You guys have your own factory, you have your own production line, you're doing it yourselves. I wonder has Sandy told you anything about how unique that is? The perfect thing for him to do is hop in at this moment with this stage of the company.
Well, I think he's certainly commented on the uniqueness of the product and in terms of the production process itself. To me, it's just a nice entry point, right? We're not we don't have 500,000 square feet of manufacturing space and cranking out thousands of vehicles a month, which would be a much more difficult ship to turn for the growth stage. We're really at a point where we've got, we've put more than 100 vehicles on the road now. We're getting vehicles into the hands of some key early adopters. We're getting our early deliverators out into the field, but we're still very nimble. And I think that's a point, he asked me on the phone today, he's like, how well do you take criticism? And I said, actually feedback is my favorite thing, because the goal here is to make the best possible product. And so having pro eyes on it right at this stage for our next major leap, I think it makes just a ton of sense.
And maybe you could update us on, I know you're applying for a big loan from, I believe, the Department of Energy to get the factoring or manufacturing off the ground. And I've seen the stock do really, really well, also on the back of the Deliverator news, I think, which has been pretty exciting. So I'm curious if you could fill us in on like the state of funding with that new loan or how that's going.
Totally. Well, and yeah, so where we last left off, I think we last talked right after we did earnings. We had shuttered the production line because of the pandemic. We have now restarted production at a very low, super socially distant production process on the assembly line. So we're now back to getting our final Evergreen series vehicles built for our earliest customers. We're getting Deliverator pilots on the road. We're getting rapid responder pilots on the road. But the bulk of our effort in the last 8 weeks has been getting our ATVM loan application buttoned up. And so we now have basically what we think is a fairly final draft of that application. And at the same time, we've been doing a lot of conversation with our federal partners, our federal delegation, talking with the Department of Energy about the fact that this is coming down the pike. And we've actually been in conversation with them for years. They've been out to visit the factory. This fits within the ultra efficient vehicle mandate of that program. So that has been really the focus of our effort. And I think that's one of the other reasons why now is such a good time to bring Sandy and his team on board, is just that they're, sort of the final review pass, if you will, for our plans for this next stage.
Awesome. And maybe you could fill us in a little bit more. That's great to hear the factory's back open again and producing. And I didn't even know about that. But maybe you could tell us a little bit about how that's going and just the process of reopening.
We have a lot of customers who are saying, where is my FUV? I get it, there's a pandemic going on. So we're trying to balance those two things. Obviously, the health of our team is paramount. And ultimately, I think where we want to make sure that we are getting units out the door, that those are going into the hands of some of our key early adopters and key fleet adopters, and that we are at the same time preparing for the stage of scale that's going to let us really deliver to our full pre-order backlog list, let alone some of the fleets that we're talking to. And so right now we're in that process. We also have a catch-up work to do. We've got a bunch of engineering change orders that need to get reflected through the process. We have early vehicles on the road that need attention, and we want to make sure that we're actually learning from all of the vehicles, the 100+ vehicles that we've already put out there, that we're taking all of the experiences of our early customers and making sure that if they've had, we have one issue where we've got some parasitic loss in the electrical system, we're tackling that problem so that if you can leave the vehicle unplugged for a few months and not have it drain out. Those are all, sort of the basic blocking and tackling of any vehicle startup getting out on the road. And I think one of the hidden silver linings of what has been a horrible global pandemic, at least for us, is just having a little bit of breathing room to get caught up and to get some of those learnings integrated without shoving more units out the door. At the same time, we are making, I'm in our Arcimoto remote convoy delivery vehicle right now in the middle of California. Yeah, we've done a couple of trips now to some key early adopters, and we'll be talking about that over the next couple of weeks. We did one mission a couple of weeks ago, and then another one that is wrapping up right now. And on the way down, we just got some. This is like the only time that you can drive in California without the roads just being completely gridlocked, and so we've taken advantage of that to get some just fantastic California driving footage with some of our new vehicles. And
I keep getting like every time I see an open road, I'm like, man, I wish I had an Arcimoto right now to be cruising around. Like,
When nobody's driving, it's the best time to drive. Particularly, and one of the, I think the other things that we've noticed is that the air is just, it's better. The air is clearer, and particularly when you're in an open vehicle and you can experience that, it's really, it ups the joy factor of the Arcimoto even more to be able to breathe clean air. And I hope that that's, another sort of takeaway that we all bring forward from this time is, some people in the world are experiencing clean air literally for the first times in their lives. You think of some of the pictures that we've seen from India, from big cities, where you can see across town, and that's, it's time. It is time for us to clean up the skies.
been exciting for me to see not only that we got this experiment and that it happened and the air was so clean that now that transportation shut down for a couple months, but that now in the financial markets, like all, the whole Nikola stock explosion, I think is part of this. And then Tesla, Arcimoto, Neo, like I see the capital markets moving to put this focus and emphasis on EVs and really start to wake up to how big of a deal this is and how structurally everything is about to change. So that's kind of been really exciting for me to watch too.
Yeah, and what we've heard from our own investors is simply that they sort of understand the Arcimoto thesis a lot more against the backdrop of this time, particularly the last mile delivery story with the Deliverator, and then even the fun utility vehicle. It's as transportation begins to happen again, people are thinking much more about how do I get around my local area than how do I. If I'm considering traveling, I've got to factor in, well, what happens in that place if there's an outbreak? How am I going to, so it's much more about how do I actually enjoy my own community and the trips I take to the post office or the grocery store or just out to get out of the house.
And one thing I'm super curious about, I don't know how much you can talk about this, is the Deliverator partnership, because I know you guys announced that you were going to do like a beta test of Deliverators. That's all been going on as the COVID's happened. I'm curious if there's any updates on that, or just generally if you can talk about the focus on deliveries as a bigger piece of the economy now that in the new normal, so to speak.
Just as an example, grocery delivery has gone from something like 2 to 3% of the grocery market to 20 to 30% of the grocery market, 10x in the span of a few weeks. So that's, and I don't think that it's going to go back to 2 to 3%. I mean, the big hurdle to get grocery delivery going is to install the app, to put in your credit card information, to make your first order. Once you get over that hurdle and you've done it for the last 4 weeks, just because you now feel a little bit safer going outside, the convenience factor of having those groceries just show up at your doorstep instead of fighting for parking, waiting in line for the checkout, trying to find out where the Cheerios are, all that stuff. I think it will likely pull back somewhat, but it's not going to pull back to where it was before. And so that last mile delivery thesis is something that a lot of folks have really jumped onto. That being said, I talked to somebody this morning who said, I think your real win is the rapid responder. That new way of doing emergency services and getting to people who are in trouble as quickly as possible. That's where your real win is. So I would say that the team's sort of internal consensus bet is on the Deliverator. Although I still think the fun utility vehicle and its continuing iterations are going to be awesome market potentials as well. But I think for us, the overall story is just simply that we've basically got one product platform that can go in a lot of different directions depending on how the market moves.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for the time and the update, Mark. Is there anything else you want to let the hyperchangers know about, or any updates we should be looking for Arcimoto?
Well, I would just say stay tuned. We've got we had talked at our earnings about getting Deliverators on the road. This is that is happening, and I think we're going to have some fun stories to tell about that, as well as just our continued push forward to get into real scale and execute on the mission.
Awesome. Yeah. And I'm so pumped about the Sandy Munro partnership. I feel like I have the coolest job in the world. Like I'm friends with Sandy, I'm friends with Mark. I get to link them up and I see you guys come out with this press release of like Arcimoto gets to be better. Sandy gets something fun to work on. Like it just makes me really happy to see that this worked out. So congrats.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to see how it unfolds.
Yeah. And thanks again, man. I really appreciate you connecting the dots, and yeah, we'll see where it goes.
See you again soon.
See you.